and I follow him on the internet quite a bit. He is one of these prognosticators, and he's a fellow whose vision I've come to he's one of the guys I sign up for just to find out. I wonder what Gerald Celente is thinking this morning about what's going on in Egypt, what's going on when it comes to our country's continuing effort to export our inflation while we are also trying to export our jobs. And Gerald Celente is publisher of the Trends Journal and a bunch of other things. Good morning, sir. Welcome aboard.
Oh, good morning. Thank you, Jan.
React a little bit to what you think is happening in Egypt.
Well, as you well know, that we had forecast beginning in autumn that there would be a trend of violent overthrows of nations around the world. And what's happened in Tunisia and now in Egypt is just the beginning. You know, I have a saying as a former Bronx guy, when people lose everything and have nothing left to lose, they lose it. And this has nothing to do with democracy or human rights. It has to do with the bottom line, putting a roof over your head and food on the table. And we saw what was going on actually in the UK back in November. Off with their heads, the students were screaming at the royal couple as they raised tuition rates 200%.
Tuition rates, yes.
and then you look at the austerity measures. I love it. White shoe boy language for cutting services, losing your pension and benefits, no jobs. Oh, we're going to lower the minimum wage. Oh, and by the way, we're going to tax you to death so that you could pay off the bad debts that banks and big bondholders.
And as this morning, Gerald Celente, I just heard them floating mandatory retirement, not mandatory, but minimum retired age, moving it from where it is now all the way up to 69 or 70. So that's another way to defer paying off on the safety net.
Yeah, I say, you know, no more retirement of benefits. You get them after you die.
Yes. We won't really get benefits. You will get a really, really nice and handcrafted Hallmark greeting card, a sympathy card.
So what's going on in Egypt is just the beginning. Here's the way it figures out, Jan. 1929, the crash of 29 equals the panic of '08. The Great Depression equals the Great Recession. And we all know what followed. After these bailout bubbles burst and all these Ponzi schemes collapse, they take you to war. And that's what we're facing. And we're very concerned about it. And we're not alarmists. We're just looking at the facts. And the facts are this. Here's part of the propaganda scheme. If you pick up the New York Times, which I now call the toilet paper of record, they call themselves the paper of record, but being that they call what I do pessimism porn, hey, everything's fair, you know? And so here's what they're saying about the beloved and respected Egyptian military. This is the same military where this guy came out of, Mubarak. He was a general with them. And now they're telling the people to go home. So it's just going to be one coup after another. They're going to put up another front. So there's not going to be any change there, and we're going to start seeing more and more outbreaks, first in the Arab nations, next we're forecasting Europe.
Well, what will the European ones? Because even in the case of Yemen, they're asking the guy said, "Well, I'm not going to run for re-election," and they're calling for an international day of rage. Now that kind of talk, that's leftist language. That's hardcore leftist language that's now being applied to Islamic uprisings.
Well, exactly. It's workers of the world unite. You see this kind of scenario play over and over again, and you look at the facts. You know, take here in the good old USA. I listened to President Obama's State of the Nation address. I'm a political atheist, so when I say about him, it's, anybody. I don't believe in anybody wants to believe in their fairy tales, knock themselves out, that's fine with me. You want to believe in your political religion, that's okay. Keep it at home. I just look at the facts of the way they are. And you hear all these politicians, no one, not a word, not a zero about the middle class anymore, because it's shrinking, and the gap between the rich and the poor is the widest in the United States of any of the industrialized nations. And that's what's going on worldwide. The people are angry. They're angry. Look, I'm not a kid. Who made up this too big to fail nonsense? And then we see the facts as they come squeaking out. The Goldman Sachs gang got what? $3 billion of our dough that we all work hard for to pay off their bad bets?
And as you properly noted, we have bailed out banks all over the world, billions of dollars of American equity exported to keep the international Ponzi scheme afloat.
Well, actually, it was $20 trillion. That's with a T. $20 trillion worth of under-the-table deals foisted on us by the Fed, and the money, as you pointed out, it went to the banks in Korea, Japan, Switzerland, Germany, Netherlands, Spain, France, all over the world, even Canada. Oh, and here's the best one. They also did low interest and no interest loans to those wonderful folks in the hedge fund business. General Electric, Verizon, Harley Davidson, the list keeps going on. So, yeah, the people are angry. They're angry all over the world. And you're right. This is leftist, communist language we're going to start hearing.
All right, so what is the solution? Is it too late, or is it we just grab our equity and head for the hills, or what's the next
I buy
step?
gold, and I've been buying it, as you well know, from our, forecasts, because this digital money, not worth the paper it's not printed on, it's going to collapse at some point. And there are solutions, by the way. And in America, the solutions to me are very simple and only going by facts.
Well, you've got the Ron Paul solution: audit the Fed, kick him in the keister. He was comparing the fall of Mubarak to what he hopes will be the fall of the Federal Reserve System, and they're hoping to reinstall some kind of a gold-backed currency to bail us out, or at least to rebuild on the wreckage.
And I'm totally in support of that. I'm also in support of Ron Paul's position on bringing the troops home. We're spending $1 trillion a year on defense and defense-related expenditures, and I'm totally in agreement with him there. Let's protect our own borders. And the other thing is, when was this nation the most egalitarian? When was the gap between the rich and the poor the narrowest in all the world? It was prior NAFTA and the World Trade Organization. Here's my slogan for 2011: break the chains. If we're never going to be free until we really break the chains. And it's buy local, bank local, and shop local. And I buy everything I can local. I'm an American firster. This isn't free trade. What kind of imbecile is going to tell me it's free trade? Here's the deal. You get your stuff made in a slave labor country, and you hear these politicians like Obama talking about being competitive with the Chinese. Oh, yeah. How about making $62.50 a week and having a hernia? That's competitive.
Well, what does it mean if the largest corporation in our country, General Motors, now sells more to the Chinese than Americans and worldwide?
Yes, and President Obama made it a point when he went up to the Schenectady plant for General Electric, saying that his trips overseas were to do more business for General Electric. And here's the other deal. I heard President Obama say we created 1 million jobs, American corporations, in 2010. He's wrong. They created 2.5 million. The only problem is they created 1.5 million of them overseas. So they're getting this stuff made in slave labor countries, marking the price up and selling it here. So my motto is not made in China. Because, I believe in the golden rule, those who have the gold rule, and I don't dig the Chinese totalitarian communist government ruling me. And people better wise up to it. And here's the other thing they're doing, Jan. You're not seeing made in China anymore. You're seeing made by PRC. And people don't know what that means.
People's Republic of China, which anything of the people's name in it makes me nervous.
Yeah, really.
Because if the people own it, nobody owns it. Or usually it means the government owns it, and they just label the people, people's, I don't like People's Bank. People's Insurance, People's Car Company.
And then the hypocrisy they talk about human rights. They're always talking about human rights. There are no human rights in China. And then, how come we're not doing business with Cuba? I mean, what makes Cuba worse than China? So anyway, there are solutions, and the other solution to me is let's put it back into place, the laws that were created to prevent the banks from becoming the criminal organizations they've become, like the Glass-Steagall Act that was dismantled under the Clinton and Bush administrations that allowed banks to become these huge maniacal organizations that they are. Here, look at the facts. 30 years ago, the top 10 banks controlled 20% of the action in the country. Now they control 80%. This is America? To me, the merger of state and corporate powers, according to the definition, is called fascism.
So we have a debt bubble. Has it burst, or is it just going to slowly leak and deflate? Is there going to be a soft or a hard landing?
It's going to be a hard landing. It's going to burst, and it's going to burst worldwide. You look what's going on in Europe. They're doing the same thing there. The bankers, they've broken every treaty, the Maastricht Treaty, the Maastricht Agreement, the Lisbon Treaty. They weren't supposed to bail out failing banks, bondholders, and cover bad sovereign debt. They're doing it. They're all printing this digital money. You have a bubble that's blowing up worldwide. Listen to the words of the Brazilian finance minister, Manteiga. He said, a currency war has begun. And it's begun in the U.S. They're devaluing our currency in front of our eyes. Again, with this white shoe boy language, I love it. Quantitative easing, QE2. Isn't that quaint? Isn't that nice?
It's not nice if you get a piece of paper that's worth less with every ticking second. And it's just, we've tried to export our inflation to the other parts of the world, and they've caught on, and they're angry with us. What happens if we run out, and when we run out of our own inflated currency?
We're seeing it now. One of the reasons why commodity prices are going up so high, yes, part of it's supply and demand, but these commodities are based in dollars, and as the dollar gets cheaper and cheaper, the values, the cost of everything we buy goes up.
Well, the problem here, where you're talking to the heartland, and corn, beef, soybeans, pigs, and cattle, commodity prices are way up for all of us, but also our cost of our inputs are way up because of the inflated dollar. $3 per gallon for gasoline, $100 per barrel for oil means the input prices are way up for all of the stuff that we build here for the rest of the world.
Precisely. And it's only going to get worse.
But they're blaming the farmers for the increased cost of food, and we're not responsible for that.
Of course not. And then this is what they're doing. What people forget during the Great Depression, we hear these fairy tales about, they called a bank holiday because there was a run on the banks. Yeah, there was a run on the banks. The run on the banks were, in those days, when you had your worthless paper money, it was backed by gold. And people were running to the banks to turn in their paper for gold. That's why they closed down the banks. And the great FDR, the Emergency Banking Act in 1933, what they did was they forced people to turn in all of their gold certificates, gold bullion, and gold coins. And if you didn't, you'd go to jail for 10 years, and anything they catch you with, they double the fine. So now when they got all the gold in, gold, when you sold it to the bank, you sold it back at the price that was pegged at $20.62 an ounce. Once they got it all in, because the dollar was pegged to gold, they raised the price of gold to $35 an ounce, which means They deflated your money. It cost you 40% more to buy what you bought the day before.
Yeah, they stole your gold, and then they inflated the pieces of paper that they paid for it with. They stole from you twice in the same breath.
Exactly, and they're doing the same thing now. They're robbing us. This is the greatest bank robbery in world history, and the banks are doing the robbing.
In 2011, you think that will be the year of the awakening. For most people will finally catch on to it and start booting all of the nasty varmints. You think we'll do that here at home?
No. You know, I get a kick out of. I heard Vice President Biden say that Mubarak was no dictator and that he should stay in office. And the guy's been in for 30 years. And then I looked at how long Biden's been sucking off the public dole. He's been in for 36 years. You know, it's the same thing. I mean, they have an autocratic. You know, what do we have? A duocratic. You know, these people are career politicians.
I think it's just professional courtesy, Gerald.
Excuse me?
It was just professional courtesy.
Exactly.
I have to go, and I know that you've already spent more time than you planned, but I really appreciate your expertise and your passion. The Trends Journal, where can people get onto that list and to make contact with you guys?
TrendsJournal.com. That's TrendsJournal.com, and all our 2011 trends are posted.
Thank you, Gerald Celente.
Hey,
appreciate your time this morning, sir. Bye-bye. It's 25 after 9. The rest of the morning is an open line time. We got